Hello, everyone. Hello again. Let's receive one breath together. There is something magical when we just align our breath. Breath is I say the remote control, is the universal remote control. The breath gets us to connect to our thoughts, to our emotions, but gets to align the vibrations of everyone. So there's something magical about aligning our breath. And somehow we know that we do it, but we do it unconsciously. It's like when you drink a beer together and you need to have an alignment of the breath in order to enjoy that beer at the same time. Yeah. So we feel it's the beer that we enjoy, or the tea, or the wine, or the cacao. But beyond the substance and the environment, there is an alignment of the breath that comes with doing something together. And when there is an alignment of frequencies, all of a sudden things shift for a lot of people. There is something powerful about a collective vibration. So I hope when you watch the recording, you also received one breath with everyone. And that's also what's wonderful when we facilitate breath work together, to have a moment where everybody's breathing together at the same time. There is something very powerful there. Um, and the breath is such an incredible modality, such an incredible tool. It's not from me, but I love to say that it's a symptom and it's a cure. We learn so much about someone's autobiography by just studying how they breathe, where the breath is located, whether they are stuck on inhales, on exhales. Um, Say it's holding the memory of the loves and losses. We're not just flesh and bones. So spending a bit of time whenever we are with someone to just be with their breath and aligning with their breath tells us a lot about what's going on, what happened to them. And at the same time, we have the remote control, and whenever we change our breath, we change our state, and we can down regulate by focusing on longer breath, and we can up regulate by shortening our breath. So just having that awareness that we can always be in control of what's going on. So let's say you're going through something a little bit challenging, a trigger or something, it's usually associated with a breath hold. So if you have awareness of your breath at all time, you'll be able to observe, says, oh, that's interesting. I'm not with my breath anymore. Huh. That gives me an insight of something's going on, or my breath is more shallow, or it's more towards the upper part of my body. I have no idea what I'm telling you all that. It has nothing to do with the topic of today, but here we go. Uh, the topic of today is that idea of being embodied, and as a breathwork facilitator, to be able to shift from teacher to facilitator, and to dive a little bit into that concept of how can I be more embodied, and how can I show up, and why should I show up as a facilitator and not as a teacher. Why I mentioned that topic and bring it up in this series of webinars. And if you haven't joined, this is the part 4 of a 5-week series of webinars. You're welcome to check in I put it in the notes, the 3 previous recordings with different aspects of what it takes to be an embodied facilitator for me. So watch those. But today it's very much about your identity. And what I see very often is amazing teachers who are coming, and you can really feel that they are master of their craft, that they have nailed the structure, they know exactly what they're doing. There is some kind of a presence, an authority that comes in the space that imposes respect. And I tend to say that it's a very masculine approach to the, the craft, which is what we very often see, mainly because there is a time restriction. People are doing a session for 2 hours. And within those 2 hours, people have paid and they have seen in the description what will happen. So the facilitator is forced to stick to a kind of a structure that is pre-established. So there is some kind of introduction and then the breath and then a little bit of shares. And that's pretty much what we see. And we see a lot of that going on. I would love to challenge that approach and offer the idea of facilitating instead of leading, of showing up as a container holder rather than as a guide. I do really believe that if we create the conditions, the structure for people to attune with one another, to attune with the facilitator, then from a place of attunement, from a place of relaxation, they can access the deepest parts, the repressed parts, the parts of themselves that they've pushed away. So I would say that the most important happens at the level of the nervous system. And if we can help people regulate their nervous system, then not much is needed. So for me, the essence of what I teach in the teacher trainings and what I do when I facilitate is very much trying to attune to the nervous system of the people who are there with me. And I can't do that if I'm in my masculine. I can't do that if I have an agenda, if I follow a structure, if I know what to do. I can only do that if I'm receptive, if I'm in my feminine, if I'm allowing, if I'm listening, if I'm just connecting. And that requires a level of self-confidence because there is no structure anymore. The structure doesn't become as important. So what it looks like when I facilitate, I have no idea what we're going to do. I have no idea what introduction will come. I have no idea what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. I just follow aliveness. I just respond to what is given to me by the energy in the group. And that can be the energy of the majority of the group. It can be the energy of one particular person that is drowning all the energy of everyone because they are going through something very heavy. I call it, it's the elephant in the room. And by just following I always say, who is the most alive in my group? And I just check who is the most alive because I know that the energy is drawn to that person. Right? And that can be because they are solar and everybody loves their vibration, or it can be because they are very dark and heavy and resisting and there is something there. So I'm just gonna take a moment at the beginning to smell, observe the nervous system of everyone, see who's regulated, who's dysregulated. So what does it mean is I'm paying attention. Who is making eye contact? Who's not? Who is present, who is resisting, and without judging, who is talking a lot, who is very silent, who is avoidant, who arrived late. Maybe it doesn't mean anything, maybe it means a lot. A lot of behaviors are coping mechanism managers. People arrive late because they're avoidant or because they want to be seen. I don't know. There might be some reasons, and maybe not. But just being the observer rather than coming from a place of control, like this is the way it should be done. Those are the rules that I've set. I've said we start at this time. This is what we're going to do. If I drop all that and I start to tune in into my body, that's why you need to be embodied. I need to be super regulated myself. If I'm not regulated, knowing that I'm trying to attune to other people's nervous system, there's no way anything is going to happen from a place of me being dysregulated. So I start with checking in, am I regulated? And if I'm not regulated, I'm going to do what it takes for me to regulate. I don't care about anyone but myself in that moment. So if there is something that is throwing me off, I will create the space for me to be with myself. And maybe it means I get people to meditate for 5 minutes while I regulate myself, right? I'm going to give them something to do, and then I can, do what I need to do to be completely regulated. And only from that place I enter into connection. But I enter into connection with the intention of listening, not with the intention of speaking. So what does it look like if I start facilitating? I start by checking in what's going on with others rather than introducing myself. I don't start by talking, I start by listening. So I don't have anything to say at the beginning. Because if I start talking, being the leader at this point, I'm going to influence the vibration of the room. People are going to play the game of the leader. But if I remove myself and I just become the observer, then I can see what's going on for people. I can observe the dynamics in the person. And that's true for a one-on-one. That's true for a group. That would be valid for 100 people. I would want to create the conditions for me to be observing and listening. And that's usually how people fully arrive, because now they are forced into attunement with one another. They don't have the reference point. They don't have me as a reference point yet. They have just one another. And that gives them the space to actually feel, how do I feel with these people, right? And I really encourage that to happen in my sessions. I always start with, how do they feel in the space? How do they feel with one another? And from that place, how do they feel within themselves? So you see, the idea of fully arriving in their bodies is a prerequisite for me. There is no way they're going to say something from their heart, from what's alive in them, if I don't help them regulate first. So we're always going to start with some regulation exercise, some centering practices, and from that place, we'll get them to come into connection. And again, I will play the game that they are playing. I want them to feel safe. I want them to trust the space. And for that, nothing like a bit of freedom, a bit of space. So I don't come with too many rules. I don't come with too many guidelines, because I want to know who's going to be loud, who's going to be quiet, who's going to take a lot of space, who's going to be shy, who's dressed to be fabulous. What's the story that is being told by this whole person? For that story to be told, I need to disappear, right? So there, it's very important that at the beginning I create that safety from the start into, okay, what is the story that is being told? That doesn't work if I come with a recipe. That doesn't work if I apply a set of tools, a method. Then I'm going to create maybe a cathartic release. Maybe people will have a profound moment. But it's happening, very important. This is happening from a dysregulated nervous system. And nothing transformational can ever happen from a dysregulated nervous system. So my sole obsession is to get people to be regulated at the level of the nervous system, because it's from that space of safety, of trust with the group, with me, with himself, that they can approach their most wounded parts, exiles following the language of internal family system, the parts of them that is really scared. And it doesn't mean we have to go there. We can go at a very superficial level. We can go to just a release of stored emotions. But if we really want to create a space for transformation, it's very much about me being me rather than me applying techniques. So that's knowing that the most powerful way to impact someone is through your own nervous system, through the mirroring brain, through the co-regulation. That's what's going to create the conditions for people to do exactly the same. And the more I'm in my body, embodied, the more I am owning my parts and revealing myself, the more I give them permission to do the same. That's why authenticity and vulnerability are so powerful modalities, and so values or tools that are essential. So it's one of the first things people hear from me is not coming from Alex the facilitator. It comes from Alex the human. And that sets the tone for the whole session. And I do this even when I'm demonstrating. So I can have 6 people in sessions and 6 people observing. So it's a teacher training. People are observing me. I'm going to start. And the fact that I start with sharing exactly what is alive in me without trying to be perceived as anything but someone who's, I don't know, struggling because my daughter just moved to Australia and I'm struggling with that, or a challenge that I'm facing in relationship, or pretty much anything that is really going on. I just bring it up because at that point, I'm just a participant. That's what I want them to receive. There is just a human talking to another human. We're not talking to it's not a talk from someone to, I'm not starting says, oh, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very proud of you. And I blah, blah, blah. No, I share what's really going on. And that is done on purpose. This is done because this is setting the vibration of, okay, we are humans being with other humans. And I call my approach and my training the lost art of being human for a reason. Because somehow we're tired of being told what to do. We're tired of leaders and teachers and some kind of authorities, and at the same time we're drawn to them, whether it's an authority in our government or some kind of podcast guru that we want to follow, someone to tell us. We are craving finding the Messiah. We want to find someone who's finally guide us to liberation, right? And that's a big lie, and that's a big illusion. And if from the start we set people for empowerment, for sovereignty, for me, that's being in integrity. Because telling you that I can do something for you is rubbish. It's just a lie. It's just not true. But that I can create a space for you to access the most wounded parts of you, knowing that no one's going to judge you, no one's going to care actually about you, is relieving. Says, oh, and what does it look like? In my trainings, people share they are sexually attracted by children. Where in our society do you have space for that? Where do humans feel safe to share their darkest part? We don't have that in our society. So what do? We do with ourselves what we do with others. We create prisons. We lock away. We reject. We push away. That's how we deal with the misfits, right? If you are misbehaving in any way, we're going to shame you, and then we're going to expose you, and then hopefully we will lock you away. And this is how, as a society, we think we're going to address problems. But I have a question. Does it work? Do we have a healthier, safer environment for women, children? Do we feel that there is more trust between men and women? Absolutely not. And Einstein said, I said that in every podcast, every webinar, that if you do something and over, expecting a different outcome, this is called being mad. Madness is repeating over and over the same thing, expecting a different outcome. And if it's not working as a society, why do we apply the same to ourselves? Because what we push away as a society, we exactly apply to ourselves. And that's called shame and guilt and fear. And we hope that no one will ever find out about this part of ourselves. And we hope that we can enter a relationship and genuinely portray the person we want to be to that person. That ideal person, because I know that that person is lovable, is attractive, and is going to get their needs fully met. And guess what? It doesn't work. Because what you hide, what you repress, what you suppress needs to be expressed. And it's coming in the form of unconscious behaviors. And then we realize after a few months that, oh my God, I'm doing it again. And again, I'm behaving in this way, controlling, people pleasing, manipulating. And here is the secret. It all comes down to a lack of authenticity. When you own your shadow, when you own your parts, when you give yourself permission to feel and to reveal your parts and fully owning them, you start trusting yourself. It's not about what others will perceive. It's about radical responsibility, and it's about not abandoning ourselves. And when I say not abandoning ourselves, it's not abandoning parts of ourselves, but instead nurturing them, taking care of them. And that's how we should deal with misfits in a society, with care, love, and curiosity and compassion, the same way we should approach the parts of ourselves. Now, what does it mean? It means as a facilitator, you need to embody that. You need to demonstrate that. So how do I create safety? Partly by revealing my shadow, revealing the parts of me that I believed no one should ever know about those parts. That if people knew that about me, they would never join my training. They would never trust me in the breath. They would never want to connect with me. And I promise you that, because I ask that in every time someone is bringing up their shadows. I promise you that the next question, when someone revealed about his sexual tendencies and behaviors and desires towards children in a group with, I'm a father, there were mothers, there was like group of 20 people, and he's revealing that. And my next question for the group is, who feels, raise your hand if you feel closer to that person than ever before. And everybody raised their hand. And that person just cracked open and cried and felt, oh my God, you are telling me I can be authentic and not rejected? What the fuck? And they realized that incredible truth bomb. The more authentic you are, the more you will feel a sense of belonging. And that, my friend, is the essence of healing. And healing in ancient tribes means circling, means being together. And when we create that frequency of non-judgment, of full radical permission and responsibility, by embodying that, by demonstrating that, you create a healing space. And usually when I reveal a part of me, I always ask the following question. Raise your hand if you feel you trust me less now as a facilitator for this session because of what I've just shared. No one raised their hand. And if they do, then there is a trigger and there is something for us to explore. So maybe there is something that is brought up about their own story. So that's also interesting. Why? But then I say, okay, who trusts me more as a facilitator as a result of this share? Usually everyone or most people raise their hand, right? Because if I give myself permission to do something, I also tell them you have the permission to do exactly the same. And if they get to know my shadow, then they will also trust my light. But you will not trust someone's light if you don't have access to their shadow. And that's why we crave intimacy. That's why we crave to get to know the truth of someone. That's how we're going to start trusting them. Not through the shiny mask that we bring up. Because, and we wear masks all the time because we don't feel that we're going to be loved and received if we are fully authentic. And that's the big mistake. And the moment you realize that as a facilitator, there is going to change everything in your spaces. You're going to drop the technique, you're going to drop the perfect answers, and you're just going to show up as a human, giving permission to people around you to also be human. And that's why we train facilitators. We don't train leaders. We train people by giving them permission to be just themselves. Because then at the end, that's also why they're going to be successful. They're going to be successful because people all of a sudden will resonate with that, will resonate with whatever story is going on. They will be able to transform their wounds and their pains into gifts. So all of a sudden, porn addiction, suicidal thoughts, addiction of any kind becomes your biggest asset, becomes something that is going to get people to relate to you. Not to me, but to each of your light. And that's liberating for facilitators. Says, what were you telling me? I don't have to wear fancy clothes and do anything special and wear, spiritual necklaces in order to be successful? Yeah. If you like them, wear them, but it doesn't matter. Just own your parts with pride, with humility, and that's going to do it. So I'm also very conscious of what I bring to my workshops and my trainings. For instance, I'm very resistant to share knowledge. I'm very resistant of sharing anything that's going to get people to see me above them. All right? So it needs to be always done. Whatever I share, I'm always questioning myself. Is it very much serving their process or not? Or am I in my ego? Am I trying to gain their trust by impressing them through dropping complicated terms and getting them to, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about because he has understood the Bohr effect, right? But that just creates a gap. So same, am I sharing from a place of authenticity and being of service, or am I dysregulated and I need to use the group to regulate? Do I subtly, discreetly, unconsciously seek validation from my students? Do I want to take something from them? Is there something there that is at play? Maybe I want to be the dominant male. Maybe there is a woman that I'm attracted to and I somehow want her to be attracted to me. That's why it's so important for a facilitator to have done self-inquiry and have awareness of your biases and says, oh, actually, that's what's going on. This guy is better looking than me, and no. Okay, I'm gonna be the dominant male, and I'm gonna do it this way and that way. Oh, so if you are able to observe what's at play and what's going on for you, and have that self-awareness, that you don't have to react, you don't have to fit it, you don't have to operate unconsciously. and you can remain of service. Am I chasing breakthroughs? Am I wanting them to have a release? Do I want them to have for their money because they told me what they wanted? And the people pleaser in me says, oh, but I want to give it something. I want them to have something, some breakthrough. I want them to have something amazing. So I'm going to choose music that's going to push them to the edge. So what is my attachment? Where do I have an agenda? What am I controlling? Am I trying to get them somewhere? Observe that, because that's a pitfall. That's what leaders will do. And you have amazing leaders, charismatic, and they take people through a process and everybody feels amazing. But you do not create transformation from that space. You create transformation by getting people quietly, calmly to reprogram and create new neural pathways to change their reality. Not through the breakthroughs, not through the cathartic releases. Those are just, yeah, they're addictive. They feel good. You get a lot of validation from it, but it doesn't go anywhere, right? So what it means, you can have knowledge, you can have information. You don't need to say it. You don't need to reveal what you know. You don't need to reveal, even if it's very useful to the process of people. Maybe it is useful for the process, but they need to get there by themselves. So instead, I can just create the conditions for them to come to the same realization without feeding it to them, just by creating the resonance through the group. Yeah. Also observe if somehow you want to be right. One of the things I make sure I say in every workshop, those 3 words create the most safety in all my sessions, is when I say I don't know. So that instantly creates safety for people. Right? So just observe that as a facilitator, the most important is the nervous system and the regulation of the nervous system. And if someone is dysregulated, I have this magic sentence. Someone who may be not making eye contact, their breath is shallow, is fast, they are exiting the room, they are not, whatever it is, what is the nervous system telling me? And then I said his magic words, I'm curious what's going on for you. And I give them the space to co-regulate, to share what is really going on. And maybe they are going to confront me. Maybe he says, well, I don't like the way you're talking. I didn't like that joke. I didn't like what you just did. And I don't know if I can trust you anymore. I'm okay. And I love when people do that, because it means that they trust me enough to say that. Right? And I love conflict, because traumas is inherently a conflict in the nervous system. So when conflicts come, for me, it's a space of healing as well. And we bring it to the container. So as a facilitator, what it means is my sole obsession is to create conditions. What are the guidelines? What are the rules? I don't put them at the beginning. I want them to have freedom and sovereignty. But then my containers are extremely tight. There is not much space for playing outside some rules, like equal airtime, one speaker at a time, no advice giving, your opinion is not welcome, no one's fixing, no one. So I could go on, but those are golden rules. And that's within those rules, those guidelines, that we can play, because those are guidelines for nervous system regulation, right? If someone is giving you advice with the best intention because they care about you, but it's not solicited, it's not invited, somehow unconsciously they're also saying, I'm above you, I know more than you. And that never feels good. That's why giving unsolicited advice should be illegal, all right? Because it doesn't work. That's should be the only reason. Instead, I release attachment to outcome. I'm present with myself and with others. I'm the observer. I'm the steward of the guidelines. I'm not the authority. I don't make decisions, right? We have a container, we have a community, and that's how decisions are made, if any. And the most important as a facilitator, you need to trust the process because it gets rocky. It's not easy peasy, right? So you need to remain calm and collected and trust the process. Because if you start to be dysregulated, you're going to want to control the situation. Because fear invites control. But if I choose to trust the most uncomfortable situations, when I'm being challenged, when people want to quit, when people are instead of defending myself, instead of protecting, instead of judging them, if I can just trust and stay in my heart and allow their nervous system to co-regulate, it's the most transformational moment for people. So the teacher, he delivers content, he has an agenda, how to do things, he's got a recipe. The facilitator, he protects the container. It's a very, very, very different approach, right? There's no fixing, there's no rescue, there's no desire for people to cry, to have emotional releases. And it's not about people saying that was life-changing, you know, that it never is when people say that. Because life-changing is very subtle. It's very calm and it's very regulated. It's not fireworks. So it's okay to, I've been in all of them. Huh? It's a very human thing to do. Huh? It's a very human thing to do as a facilitator, to want validation and to be seeing your worth in your work. But it's just not working, right? It's not how you create deep transformation. So it's important because it relieves you from putting pressure, judging, fixing, evaluating, all these things that actually are creating dysregulation. So getting people outside their window of tolerance. It's a lot of work if you are going through those edges. It's not through contraction that you access transformation. It's through the integration. If you anchor yourself as a facilitator in, for me, the truth that transformation is in the integration, then that's your new focus. All right? People usually decide to join my training with the following sentence when they are choosing which breathwork training to choose from. And I say, breathwork is prep work. I don't care about the breathing technique. There is no judgment of holotropic rebirthing and soma and da 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 da. I think it's the focus is on the wrong part of the session. What matters is the conditions that led to the breathwork and the integration after. 30% of the session needs to be focused on after breathwork. And it's okay, you want to do nose, 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 mouth, music like this, headphone, no headphone, all these things, fantastic. Everybody, but if you do well the first part, people arrive, they are ready, they are safe, they trust, they are open, they are empowered, they are sovereign. That's from that place that they can enter the breath. Transformation happens in safety. Insights happen in safety. So safety is the prerequisite for transformation. You will not have authentic expression if people don't feel safe. And that cannot happen if in a dysregulated nervous system. So people being overexcited or disassociated. So that's why the stimulation is not the most important. It's the space itself. So that's also why in my process, it takes a long time. If you learn with me, it takes 2 years. And this is how it should be. Because you need times for you to acquire the knowledge, to start facilitating, to practice, to go through your own layers of human, to step into your full power as facilitator. And you need to be supported and mentored so you don't drop out. And that's why my training in Bali is 3 weeks. And it's 6 days a week and it's 10 hours a day. Because then we have space. We have a lot of space. And that's where the magic happens. That's why I cannot do a short workshop. My minimum workshop is 2 days. I don't do less than that. I do a short intro breathwork every Monday online for 2 hours because I need to put myself out there and get people a little taster, but we need more time than that. And when I do privates and all, I need at least 4 hours with people, right? To create intimacy, to create a relationship. The nervous system likes repetition, likes consistency. Otherwise, it's scanning for proof and signs that things are not aligned. So he's not going to trust easily. He's going to just check over and over and validate. Okay, how safe are we now? How safe are we now? How safe are we now? Especially with complex trauma, complex PTSD. This is regulation takes a while. If you create long containers, then you can do identity shifts. And if you do long containers, create a lot of space within them. The most transformational moments in my trainings, in my workshops, are the breaks. It's actually outside the session themselves that the magic happens. And it's the breaks when people are connecting with each other, and it's when they go home and the 2-3 weeks that follow their sessions and the months and years that follow. So, yeah, if you are aiming at creating real shift, forget about being knowledgeable. So many students go from one training to the next, feeling, oh, I need to master this modality and this knowledge, and I need oxygen advantage certification because it's all about the science. And then I will feel, you know what? You will feel finally confident. That's all. Nobody cares if you have the knowledge of what's happening in the blood when the oxygen goes in and the CO2 goes out. And oh my God, so much pressure that we put on ourselves to be some kind of like authorities. Another thing I do in every workshop, I pull out ChatGPT. You know, ask me questions. I'm happily answer, and I'll check on ChatGPT. You know, and people don't think less of me because I check the content on ChatGPT. Nobody cares. People don't come to facilitators because of their knowledge. Knowledge is easy to access, right? So forget the performance, forget the technique. Just be present, regulated, and what you are doing when you're doing this, unconsciously, you give them permission to do the same. That's the secret. So, yeah, I think that's what I have for you, my friends. So please, you can now raise your hand if you have questions. I have seen Sue put a little message. If you're okay, Sue, and then the others who are going to raise their hand, I'm going to put you as a, I'll add you, and you can now unmute yourself, Sue, and ask your question.
Yeah, I think my question is, when checking into self-awareness, sort of preparing to hold space, how do you, what does there's a lot of this discussion of a regulated nervous system. What does it actually mean? And what does it actually feel like?
Thank you. Fantastic question, Sue. I would say if you have awareness of your average breath rate, that will be a good indicator. So if you know kind of what your regulated breath rate looks like and feels like, having an observation of your breath will give you a good indication of where you're at with your nervous system, right? So a regulated nervous system will have kind of a slow, regulated breath pattern. And I find that quite easy to go back to rather than anything else. But if I observe my breath to be not so regulated, my heart rate being up, and then I have all the signs of dysregulation, you know, sweaty, eye not able to be present, eyes going everywhere, being hyperactive, all those manifestations of a hyper aroused nervous system, then I will just observe the ability to observe. Says, oh, that's interesting. I'm checking my phone every 2 minutes. Oh, that's interesting. I can't stand still and I'm moving around. I have no reason to move around, but I move around. So again, it's this ability to have a moment of self-awareness as, oh, interesting. This is what's going on for me right now. And maybe there is a VIP in the room. Maybe there is something going on in your life that prevents you from being present. But that awareness becomes such an asset. I mean, we have one person in the room who can, you know, I'll bring him if he's okay. But the most powerful breath session I've held in my life, I don't know, Angelo, if you want to say a few words about it, but as I was facilitating, I kind of got the information through missed calls that my father had passed away, you know, and I'm facilitating. Yeah, so just want to check in with you, Angelo, if you want to share about your experience that day.
Oh, yeah. I have to say I never experienced something like that because this energy and also the connection to you was even for me because I received the session. I still have no words for this because I think the connection was so deep or you could fall so deep into it, and it gave you a lot more to step into it than I expected. For example, I just heard it afterwards, and I was shocked that you could step into it. Yeah.
Thank you. And I could do it because I'm not pretending anything. So being me, I'm being me with my like crazy rush of emotions, and I'm facilitating pouring my ass out, right? But it's not coming across as something that is not safe for them, right? It's not, it's something that feels completely, yeah, owned and embodied. And that I don't know, I cannot do it any differently. So that's what makes it easy in every situation, because I'm just being me, not really caring about. I tell the students, I don't care about you. And when I tell them I don't care about you, what I'm also saying is I give you the power to take care of yourself, right? And we have this need to be taken care of. We have this need of finding some daddy and mommies could finally protect us, right? It's such a need, and we want this facilitator to be this nourishing figure. I would challenge whether it's fully genuine or not, right? Um, yeah. Other questions? We are close to the end of the hour, my friends. Reaction questions, everything's welcome. Go ahead. Anything that came up? So, my friends, as you are preparing, if you have things to say, if you're interested in working with me, I have an online process with a most amazing training that I've put years together, and I've recorded it with a team and an audience, and it feels like you are with me, but you're studying online. And then I coach you and I mentor you as you are facilitating. And I have facilitators all over the world that are crazily successful, and I've never met them. So it's completely possible. And then if you want to come and spend time with me, I do this training in Bali and in India. I put all the links here in the group chat. Um, and yeah, anything else anyone wants to ask or say? Mm-hmm. You're all very quiet. Flor, you're still coming? Not changing your mind?
Yes, I'm even more excited. This
Amazing.
all speaks to
Amazing.
my soul. This is exactly what resonates with me. So thank you for this 1 hour, and I'm looking forward to much more.
Amazing. All right, friends. Well, I will pause the recording then.